Alright, screen's gonna be messed up for a second. There we go. So, I want to give you guys a quick guide on, now that the Freddy rework is here, what to expect with Freddy. Let us start with the basics. First off, there are now 5 preschool variants. Preschool 2, Preschool 5, Preschool 4, Preschool 1, Preschool 3. They all play kind of the same. The only one I don't really like is Preschool 2. Preschool 2 is kind of bad to me, but oh well. The other map variants I kind of like. Totem spawns are a lot more hidden on them. Pallets have been kind of moved around a little bit. The pallets and hook locations have been moved. Loops have been kind of moved around. But we're talking a bit about how Freddy works. And this is going to seem a bit boring, so I apologize if it's a bit mind-numbing to you. But we're going to go over like the add-ons and we're going to go over the power. So I'm going to break everything down part by part. And this is the substitute for his claws right here, just because I have this out. So if you see me go like this, that means Freddy's swinging at you, because it's an overpowered lunge range. So huzzah. So let's start with this. So basically, the first thing is death won't escape him, and thus he remains a calamity and disputable master of the victim's nightmares and possibility. Alrighty. So now we get through the BS. Every 60 seconds, survivors will fall asleep. Now, let us talk about falling asleep. So, every 60 seconds you fall asleep. He has a few things that change how you can get out of the dream world. After 60 seconds, you will then fall asleep, and while you're in the dream world, you then become susceptible to all of Freddy's new powers and abilities and shit. But, let's discuss. While you are in the dream world, Freddy can no longer see your aura. While you're in the dream world, Freddy can... you don't have to be in the dream world for Freddy to whack you. Whack. 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 He can just hit you. So, if I can't see Freddy, and he's able to hit me while not in the dream world, that doesn't seem very fair. Well, let's discuss. So, Freddy will be visible at all times when within 16 meters of you. Freddy has a 32-meter terror radius. At 16 to 32 meters, so at the farther end of his terror radius, you will see him intermittently while you are awake. While you are asleep, anytime you are in his terror radius, you will hear la 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 la. And Freddy will also be able to mind game you. So, a couple of things we should note about this. Where is it at? The Pill Battle add-on changes how this performs. So survivors will have a reduced range at which they can see the Nightmare. So the Nightmare, or Freddy, is invisible beyond 24 meters and is invisible to awake survivors while carrying a survivor. So, 2 things that's important to note. 1, the Nightmare is invisible to survivors beyond 24 meters. That includes if you are in the dream world. If you're in the dream world, I should note. Survivors will see the Nightmare intermittently at a reduced distance of 12 to 24 meters. This also affects the dream world. So it's giving him the power to be kind of mind-gamey in the dream world, on top of the lullaby, which makes it very hard to detect how close behind you he is. He does not have a terror radius in the dream world. Realistically, that's the only reason you should think about getting out of the dream world. There's some other add-ons and stuff here that we'll talk about later on. So, how do we get out of the dream world? Survivors can wake up by failing a skill check. So, that is any skill check. That is a, it's obviously things like Ruin, Overcharge, Hunter's Lullaby, perk related, that all counts, but it's gens, healing, repairs. Those are the 3 things you need to know. It used to be just healing and repairs. They made it sabotage now. Yay. Problem is it gives the killer a noise notification as well. And there's a few things that are important to note. He does have some strong add-ons. For example, the red paintbrush, the ebony. All survivors will start in the dream world, and any failed skill check will not wake up survivors while they are in the dream world. That is an important one as well. This is another one as well. There's a variant on this. There's a yellow variant on this and a brown variant on this. So, while survivors are in the dream world, there is a slight increase in the sabotage, healing, and repair regression penalties. And then their auras are revealed to Freddy when they fail a skill check for a few seconds. What this means is this enables him to counter survivors getting out of the dream world. by failing a skill check. This forces them to either wake each other up, which we'll explain in a minute, or to go to the alarm clock, which again we'll explain in a minute. As always, you can be hooked or you can have adrenaline, and they will both wake you up, although you only get adrenaline once per game, and getting woken up by being hooked is not a great idea. So what this means is that if you are stacking this with an Overcharge or a Huntress Lullaby or a Ruin, as I mentioned before, and you fail that skill check, it increases the regression penalty, as well as just normally failing the skill check, and regressing it by that much. As well as, now it gives an aura reveal to him as well. So because you don't know about these add-ons, if he's running these add-ons, it makes failing skill checks a bit more difficult. Although I still see a lot of people doing it. So next thing that we have is survivors can wake each other up. However, each wake-up action takes twice as long to perform. That is a bit misleading. So the way it works is, when you go to snap your fingers to wake up another survivor, it takes 4 seconds. Now the next time they fall asleep and you have to wake them up, it will take 8 seconds. And the next time you go to do it and wake them up, it will take 12 seconds. And next time you go to wake them up, it will take 16 seconds, and that's where it caps. So the cap on it is 16 seconds. I would not recommend you doing the wake up more than once or twice, and you will get a notification, by the way, that's letting you know you suck. 12 seconds is roughly the time it takes for you to get to the next feature, which is the alarm clock. There are a lot of these fucking things in the environment, so don't be afraid to go to these things. But there's only one that will specifically wake you up, and it's designed to be far away from you when you go to wake up, when you fall asleep. So if you fall asleep right next to one and expect, I can just wake myself up right here, it doesn't work like that. Basically, you just run over to this clock. It is an R1 action. You just hold R1. You reach into this bubble. You grab an alarm clock. Boom! It wakes you up. Now, Freddy does not know where these alarm clocks are, although if he sees one in the environment, he can put a trap in front of it. Or a pallet, or whatever. He can kind of camp them. Freddy does not get a notification if a survivor gets out of the dream world using the clock or the wake up. But if he's paying attention to his HUD in the corner, you know, that little thing in the lower left right there that tells you what's happening with the survivors and all that shit, yeah, you know. That will let you know, obviously, hey, he got out of the dream world. But you will go into dream world every 60 seconds. I played against it. It's actually not that bad. There's not a lot of reason to get out of the dream world other than to counter his abilities, which we're going to talk about. And now we're going to talk about extensively. So a couple of things I want to mention is, with the dream world, the other Ebony add-on, the black box, is you are obsessed with one survivor. They start the match in the dream world. They cannot be woken up, period. Don't even bother. If you start in the dream world and you do not have a ticking time clock, that means you are the obsession with the black box. All of the other survivors will automatically start with that little ticking clock around their name in the HUD. So that's pretty easy how you can tell. If all of the survivors come up like that, then it is going to be a red paintbrush. So now we're going to talk a bit about add-ons and abilities. And we're going to do this at the same time. So what you have is, alright, so you have the wool shirt. So while survivors are in the dream world, there is a slight increase in sabotage, healing, repair, regression penalties. Basically, if they suck up a skill check, there's a longer penalty. The sleep block. So this affects dream traps. Dream traps are called dream snares. And what they do is, it is a trap that you will lay down. You get 8 of them by default. And you can lay these down in the environment. And survivors, when they interact with them, can only interact with them when they're asleep. What happens is the survivors scream. They go, ah! They get an aura reveal, or sometimes it's a noise notification. Depends on what you're running for add-ons. But it slows them by 15% for 1.5 seconds by default. And basically, you want to use these to cut off chokes and stuff like that. So what this does is, when a survivor interacts with the dream snare, it causes the blindness effect for 30 seconds. It's actually pretty solid, believe it or not. Kids drawing. So this is an interesting one. This is very similar to what Leatherface has with the chainsaw does not down you, and Hillbilly has that, and there's a couple of killers with this. So basically, think of it this way. The snare doesn't slow you, but it's giving him the reveal. I actually rather like this add-on because you can get survivors to trigger the dream snares pretty easily. And it gives you a bonus 200 blood points, which is solid. And because it affects deviousness, you can stack this with something like distressing pretty easily, actually. So basically, if you want to use them more for notifications, and also, by the way, if they crouch walk over it, it triggers it. It's not like a hag trap. The only way to avoid it is to not step in it, pretty much. And then we have the Garden Rake, which this turns the Dream Snares into Dream Pallets. So, what Dream Pallets do... Dream Pallets, by the way, here are not listed, which is the funny part. So, Dream Pallets are anywhere on the map where a pallet can spawn, you can put one up, or if they've already broken a pallet, boom, boom, croissant, then you can lay one of those pallets down too. The way it works is if a survivor is in the dream world, they'll see the pallet. So let's say they run through, they turn around and they slam the pallet down. Ha-ha! Freddy is not affected by it at all. It just explodes in a thing of blood. It slows the survivor down. It actually stops them from sprinting. And it's like they can't vault it or anything, because as soon as they throw it down, it explodes in the blood, and Freddy doesn't lose momentum. He can just swing right through it with impunity. Okay, so then you have this version of the dream pallets, where it has an aura reveal when they interact with it. You have this right here. So this is something I forgot to mention with Freddy. Freddy no longer has the 25 to 50% action speed penalty in the dream world. That is gone. So there's no incentive to get out of the dream world, to be honest, other than to deal with the lullaby. Because in my opinion, that's the only thing. I don't have a problem with the regression, because I don't fail skill checks to get out of it anymore. And I don't have a problem with, you know, unless there's like an action speed penalty, which I haven't come across anyone running that yet, or unless there is, you know, the lullaby pissing me off. Then I'll get out of it. Other than that, I don't want to get out of the dream world, really, because it's just too much of an inconvenience at times. I will if I'm near, like, if I've been running around for a good 3 to 4 minutes, I can deal with that. But, moderate action speed reduction. So, what that is it's basically Thanatophobia with all 4 survivors in the dream world, basically. So, if all 4 survivors were injured, that's basically what you're getting there. It's not that hard to overcome, but it's definitely an annoyance. Alright, so, Nancy's Sketch is an add-on for his last power. Now, the pallets and the snares, you kind of choose between which one you want based on your add-ons, but he always has this active ability called the Dream Projection. Basically, aim at a generator that has not been completed. Let's start there. Get that out the way. You cannot teleport to completed generators. Stop spreading that rumor. It's fake. Aim at a generator that you can... that can be worked on, that is still being worked on. You'll hold down for 5 seconds. A little husk forms next to the generator while you're channeling to get over there. Starts gushing blood. That blood gushing forms a little husk, and then after 5 seconds he's there and goes, bleh, bleh, bleh. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. So, it has a 45-second cooldown, but for every survivor in the dream world, the cooldown is reduced by 15%. This further decreases the cooldown to begin with. Now, that's important to note. There is still the 15% cooldown reduction for each survivor in the dream world, on top of this. So, again, this is increases if you mess up a gen, and there's an aura reveal. On top of that, if you, like, try and mess up a gen to get out of the dream world, you have this applies the hemorrhage effect if a survivor interacts with it, but this only affects survivors that are already injured. I don't see this being a very useful add-on. It's kind of shit. This is a longer version of the blindness add-on, which is pretty solid. The paint thinner is the highest level dream palette you can go. This is 10 dream pallets as opposed to the 8 dream snares you get. All of the dream pallets are 10, because there's more pallets on the map. And then you get 6, it's a 6-second aura reveal. And then this moderately reduces the cooldown on it, which is insane. If you can run this, and if you run this with something like the red paintbrush, you have insane teleportation abilities. The jump rope. So this considerably increases, this is a considerable reduction in action speed while survivors are in the dream world. This is Freddy's normal mode, believe it or not. This is what he was when he back yesterday, basically, or earlier this morning, if you played earlier this morning, as of the recording of this video. This is the old Freddy with the constant action speed penalty in the dream world. That's what this is. It's annoying. Again, this is another increase in the penalty and a longer aura reveal. Swing chains are where we get interesting. So, this is insane right here. If you remember the old add-on that he had, this add-on used it tremendously. It was an additional 25% penalty while in the dream world. Action speed penalty. So it'd be like a massive, like a 75% action speed penalty. This is that. So every survivors that are awake or in the dream world, so it doesn't matter if you're awake or you're asleep, you will be affected by this, have a slightly to tremendously reduced action speed for every survivor in the dream world. So this encourages you to get out of the dream world, because if not, you're fucking over the rest of your team on top of it. We already discussed the pill bottle. I'm not really going to go over that again. The class photo is insanely strong if you are going to be a teleport Freddy. So you can't cancel the dream projection, which is something you can do a lot of times if you want to scare people off a generator, is you just start channeling it for about 3 to 4 seconds and then cancel it right before you hit 5 seconds to try and chase people off the gen and make them think, oh no, I'm coming. Don't worry, my pretties, I'm coming to get you. All of the generators will now spew blood, but you can't cancel the projection, and that husk doesn't appear, so you won't know if they're coming or not. The only way you can really tell if someone's running this add-on is if you're in a coordinated team. Z-Block is kind of shit. This used to be one of his strongest ones because it just reduced the dream world transition by 2 seconds. Now it's shit. It applies the hemorrhage status effects where the survivor bleeds, even to healthy survivors. But it doesn't do anything. If it added like mangled, I would enjoy this more if it was mangled and hemorrhage. I think that'd be like great. So if they try and like trigger the trap and then like stealth away using distortion, they're slower healing. No, this is just pretty much useless. And we already covered these too. So I mentioned all this because I want to do a little breakdown on some of the killer perks. Freddy with Nurse's Calling is still strong because Nurse's Calling is a strong perk. Freddy with Agitation is still strong because Agitation is a decent perk. It's not a strong perk, it's not a weak perk. I think a lot of people think it's weak. The extra terror radius increase is nice on him, the 12 meter increase, just because of the fact that he can play around with some nice terror radius builds. Barbecue, always a great perk. Bitter Murmur. Bitter Murmur's not really that great on him. I honestly think Bitter Murmur's pretty shit now compared to something like Thrilling Tremors, even though it does have a cooldown. The Survivor's Auras is kind of a nice thing. Reveal, but I don't really need it. Rancor or Thrilling Tremors replaces that for me. And he has so many aura reveals around the palettes, around failing skill checks. I don't think he really needs Bitter Murmur. Blood Warden, obviously very strong on him because it's one of his perks. Bloodhound is very good, believe it or not, because of the hemorrhage effect. He has a lot of abilities that do have that hemorrhage effect. I think Bloodhound becomes a lot stronger on Freddy, more so than other killers like, say, the Wraith or the Trapper. You know, your basic M1 killers that you would think you might want to run Bloodhound on, so you can track down those targets a bit better. It works pretty nice on Freddy. Brutal Strength, good perk, solid perk, works well with him, especially if you want to lay down Dream Pallets. If you're not planning on running the Dream Pallets, I wouldn't run it. Chlorophobia, tremendous to stack on with any healing speed penalties you have. You can get Chlorophobia on him. It is a solid pickup. I actually run kind of like a larger terror radius, reduced healing type build before on PTB. It's pretty fun. Dark Devotion, I would not recommend Dark Devotion. It does not affect your lullaby while they are in the dream world, and any survivor that you hit is automatically put into the dream world, so I wouldn't necessarily run Dark Devotion. It's pretty bad on him. Distressing, solid overall perk, only if you're going to if you're going for the blood points for the deviantness, if you're using the brown add-on with the blood points, or if you're trying to go for a terror radius build. Haunted Ground, it depends on what else you're running. Other than that, it's pretty solid. Devour Hope, good on every killer. It doesn't really matter. Fervent Chase is kind of interesting on him. It's weak and good. It's good at the beginning of a chase. It's bad at the end of a chase. When you already hit the survivor and you put them injured, it's not really good because it doesn't affect you in the lullaby. You understand, terror radius and lullaby are different. When a survivor's in the dream world, they hear that lullaby within 32 meters. Period. He's a beast on Meatpacking Plant, but on other maps where it's not like Meatpacking Plant, Fervent Chase is just shit with him. Franklin's is pretty solid. I don't know if it's really special on Freddy anymore because, you know, before, if you needed to fail that skill check to get out of the dream world and you didn't have self-care, you needed that med kit to get you a skill check. It's not really a requirement anymore because there's the alarm clocks and shit, so. Dying Light, good type of build, especially if you're trying to stack with the black box. What else do we have? Huntress Lullaby, fantastic, especially with the rest of his builds. Things like the additional regression on the gen. Noed, that's fucking Freddy. Freddy still uses Noed. He still needs Noed. It's a fucking bailout on him. Noed's still good. Ruin, I don't need to explain that. It's for slowing the game down, of course. How accurately they put that. Third Seal, very strong on him because of the fact that it now mitigates a lot of aura reveals, which survivors will try and use in the dream world so they don't have to get out of the dream world. I think Third Seal is fantastic with that. Infectious Fright, pretty effective. Again, this does affect your lullaby, believe it or not. This is one of the few terror radius things that does affect the lullaby. But Infectious Fright isn't as strong on him as you would think, because it's not an aura reveal anymore, it's just a notification of their location. Insidious is dog shit. Insidious is absolutely dog shit on him. Like, it doesn't affect the lullaby. They haven't fixed that on him at all. Iron Maiden, definitely a solid tracking perk on him. A lot of survivors will try and use the lockers to hide from the dream world. It's excellent on him. Lightborn, it's weak. Mad Grit is very strong on him because of body block potential. A lot of survivors do try and body block him. Against him, Mad Grit's pretty good for that. Make Your Choice is always strong. Pop Goes the Weasel is very strong on him because of the gen defense, because you can teleport to a gen, kick the gen, and then basically leave. Play With Your Food is nice for the boost in movement speed. I wouldn't necessarily run it with something like a Dying Light, though. Overcharge, same boat as Huntress Lullaby, absolutely fantastic. If you can run it on him, go ahead and do it. Monster Shrine, dog shit, don't use it. Monitor and Abuse. Monitor and Abuse is kind of interesting. I don't know how well it stacks with him. This is the other thing. I haven't really played around Monitor and Abuse with him on the rework yet. The Lullaby, it kind of works on the Lullaby a little bit because it helps with that beginning of a chase, and then once you're into the chase, it kind of like messes it up. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Rancor is a solid perk on him. Before, Rancor was like kind of like a last ditch thing that you would use if you didn't have Noed and you needed to get that last kill. You could always have Rancor, but you still have to pull him in the dream world. Now it's just OP. It's one of your better tracking perks out there as well. Remember Me. Believe it or not, Remember Me is not that great on Freddy because he has a number of tools at his advantage, at his disposal, so he doesn't need Remember Me really. I think that's kind of funny, but it's not really that strong on him. Save the Best for Last, fantastic on him, believe it or not. It's pretty good. Shadowborn, decent, but because it's kind of hard to see in the dream world anyways, as Freddy, I wouldn't say it's that highly of a thing. Spies from the Shadows, I don't think it's that strong on him, at least. On other killers, I've noticed it's a bit stronger, not on the Freddy. Believe it, Tinker, very strong perk, especially with your ability to instantly teleport to a generator. You can really play mind games with people on gens. Thrilling Tremors, it is a solid perk if you can get over that 60-second cooldown on it, because not only does it act like a free barbecue and chili for the reveal on what gen you need to teleport to stack it with something like Pop Goes the Weasel, but it also just blocks off any gens anyways, so it makes it so that if you run across a gen, you can just kick it while it's dead. Dancephobia is very solid against him. It does restore a little bit of that penalty that he had when you were in the dream world, but it's not that major. Territorial Imperative, don't use it, it's dog shit. Surveillance. Now, Surveillance works very well. But again, I prefer something like Thrilling Tremors over Surveillance. I think Thrilling Tremors is a superior version. Yes, it does have that cooldown on it, but I think the effect to like block them off is very good. That being said, Surveillance is excellent with him because he can just teleport to whatever gen as soon as it's done and just go to town on them. Unrelenting, not really that good. A lot of people have been talking about the lunge range. His lunge range is still pretty long, but it's also a longer delay, I'm noticing. So Unrelenting can help if you miss, but I wouldn't run Unrelenting, just hit. Whispers is not that good on him. There are better tracking perks than Whispers, especially with all the reveal ability that you do have in your add-ons. Bamboozle, solid on every killer, of course. It's solid on Freddy nonetheless. Beast of Prey. Believe it or not, I honestly think Beast of Prey is probably better on Freddy than any other killer, because Freddy is the only killer who, in a chase, has the lullaby and not a terror radius, and the only way you can tell where the killer is by that red stain. So, Beast of Prey is fantastic on Freddy, because you're going to hear that lullaby no matter what, but now that it removes the red stain, if you get into a chase, you can pretty much guarantee a hit as soon as you hit Bloodlust 1. I think Beast of Prey is pretty much useful on Freddy, and that's it. Corrupt Intervention? Believe it or not, I think this is the worst possible perk that you can run on Freddy right now. Like, of all the quote-unquote good perks, I'm not talking about shit perks like Territorial Imperative or Monster of Shrine. I'm talking about, like, perks you would run on other killers. You would run Corrupt Intervention on a Nurse. You would run Corrupt Intervention on a Billy, because it's like, okay, they're not on they're not on those gens right now. These are the ones I need to go after. On Freddy, that's kind of bad, because you want to be able to teleport to a gen to go after survivors, like, immediately. That's what I do as soon as I get in as Freddy. I will teleport to a generator, and I will hit you, and you will die. Corrupt Intervention blocks off 3 generators that you can teleport to for the first 2 minutes of the game. And while, yes, the survivors can't work on them, and yes, it does narrow down where the survivors are going to be, a lot of survivors like to wait out Corrupt Intervention. Well, the Nurse doesn't teleport to a generator. She teleports in that area. So she can use Corrupt Intervention because she just teleports over to that area and says, hey, bitch, what's up, and hits you. Freddy doesn't have that luxury. He has to walk his slow, burnt-up, mangly ass over to you, see if you're over there, and then hit you with it. It's probably the worst good perk you can run on him. Deerstalker. Deerstalker is now viable on Freddy Krueger. Compliments of BE. It's Deerstalker, though. Like, I wouldn't really use it. Discordians, fantastic, because, you know, hey, they're working on a gen. Whoops, don't mind if I do, guys. Let me just come over and whack you guys. Pretty much, Discordians is a guaranteed way to know what gen to teleport to. Enduring, fantastic. I don't think you need to stack it with Spirit Fury, which we'll talk about, but you can. I think Spirit Fury is stronger than Enduring on him, to be honest. Because if you're running Dream Pallets, you want to break the pallet so that you can put your pallet up instead. And Spirit Fury automatically does that. I don't know. I don't think Enduring is that strong on him compared to Spirit Fury. A lot of people run these two together. I think it's a bit redundant. I think you either need one or the other. Especially if you have Spirit Fury at 3, you don't really need Enduring with it. Fire Up is definitely good on him, because it's his perk. Hangman's Trick. Hangman's Trick kind of sucks. I mean, the only reason why that you're going to do it is, like... I mean, it makes sense on Freddy, because people are going to sabotage hooks to try and get out of the dream world, so that they don't have to go to the clock, or that they don't have to wake somebody up, or they don't have to fail a skill check on a gen. They'll just do it on the hook now. So Hangman's Trick can work on that as a free notification. Overwhelming Presence is nice, but it doesn't affect the terror radius to my knowledge. I haven't experimented on that, so don't hold me to it. Or the lullaby. Knockout, fantastic, works like a charm, it's good on him. Iron Grasp, that's if you want to run it. I'm all ears, it does work. In the lullaby, I think the downside to me with I'm all ears is just simply the fact that it's a pretty weak aura reveal compared to what he has again. Thrill of the Hunt is pretty much only good for, like, baiting people on totems. Predator, not that strong, especially compared to Bloodhound. If you want to run something that has a hemorrhage effect on it, I would run that versus the scratch marks with Predator. Sloppy Butcher, this is a great thing, especially with the hemorrhage effects that he has. Like I said, Sloppy Butcher works fantastic with it. Spirit Fury, we already talked about. Strider, kind of interesting. I would say Strider is decent on Freddy. I think it's better on Freddy than other killers because he can teleport to a gen and he can kind of like hear if a survivor just like crouched around the corner waiting a bit better. So, and then last but not least, unnerving presence. I still think this is better for the survivor than it is for the killer. So, there you go. That is my analysis on Freddy for this rework. I'll probably have some survivor gameplay, hopefully going against the Freddy within an hour or so, if I can get some people for it. So, I'll see y'all later.